not going to sugarcoat it. The WWE product, as it is right now, is very bad. Yes, I've covered it before. Same song, different verse and all that. But it bears repeating because it's terrible. It's just simply unwatchable on a week-to-week basis. Think back 5 years ago, 2016. That was one of the best years that WWE had ever had from an in-ring standpoint and also a character standpoint, because those characters put on excellent matches with good storytelling. But past few years, WWE has taken a big dip. Taken a big dip in quality, taking a huge dip in ratings, drawing their lowest ever rating for Raw in history, and it's just taken a big dip in pretty much everything. Here's what to do to fix it. I shall enlighten you, and hopefully I shall enlighten WWE. Probably not, but I hope I'm not going to. I'm Jackson Haney from Insane Internet Wrestling, and here are 10 things WWE needs to fix. Number 10, terribly scripted promos. 20 years ago, this wasn't a problem because, sure, there were some things that were prepared ahead of time, but mostly wrestlers just said whatever was on their mind as long as it was related to whatever was in the script. It wasn't as micromanaged as it is today. In 2000, there were bullet points of what needed to be said. Sure, there were some fully written out sentences here or there, but for the most part, it was bullet points, and you elaborate on those bullet points. That's how so many iconic wrestling catchphrases were created. Smell what the Rock is cooking? That was ad-libbed. Austin 316? That was ad-libbed. So many iconic catchphrases were thought off the top of the head. But when you look at today's scripts, they are insanely micromanaged. They're so micromanaged to the point where John Cena, the man who is known for terrible catchphrases, just went off script because there were so many terrible catchphrases that he didn't want to say. And that's the thing. Baby faces like that are all terrible. They all have the same gimmick, which is calling the heel something stupid. Like Cena making fun of Cesaro's big nipples, or Roman Reigns calling Sheamus tater tots. It's all the same thing, and it's all stupid. And yeah, that's really down to the promos. They're terribly scripted. Just go back to what you did. Sure, it's a family-friendly product, but you can make it family-friendly and still use bullet points. You don't need to micromanage everything a wrestler says. Number 9, commentary. Remember what I said about promos for wrestlers? Ditto commentary. But it's not just promo segments for commentary, it's all of it. Because, yeah, commentary is heard throughout the entire show. And if you micromanage what a commentator says, then the show will become unwatchable. That's what happened with the Michael Cole heel turn back in 2011. The show was literally unwatchable. Michael Cole was just so genuinely annoying to the point where you actually grabbed the remote and physically changed the channel. That's how bad the commentary actually was. I mean, that's why Jim Ross is one of the greatest commentators of all time, if not the greatest commentator of all time, because he didn't follow any precise scripts. He had probably bullet points and just elaborated on those. Like I said in the last entry, you have bullet points, you elaborate on them. You think of something that relates to what you're given and you say it. As long as it's kosher, it's fine. We don't need Michael Cole or Corey Graves or, God help us, Byron Saxton or whoever it is, saying that the show is sponsored by Progressive and Geico or something. We don't need that. Just say whatever is on your mind as long as it relates to what you are given by creative. Number 8, stage designs. Now this one isn't a huge problem, but it's still a problem. See, back in the good old days of wrestling, we're talking Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression days of wrestling, stages for shows were all different. That's what made wrestling at the time so unique, because no two stages were alike. And nowadays, the only stages that are different are WrestleMania. That's really it. I mean, the Rumble stage, for the past few years, it's been the same. Normal pay-per-views like Money in the Bank or Payback or heck, SummerSlam, all of those stages are exactly the same. They're the same as Raw, they're the same as SmackDown. NXT has gotten into the X thing, but they've had that for about a year. The only pay-per-view that is different in terms of a stage is WrestleMania, because that's the biggest show of the year, and it's the only time WWE will look at what they're having and say, you know what, this needs a little bit of dazzle, doesn't it? I mean, not even 15 years ago, pay-per-view stages were different. Heck, normal show stages were different. Raw had its own stage. SmackDown had its own stage. I mean, yeah, sure, ECW had its own stage. But when the PG era kicked in, things went downhill. All the stages became exactly the same. Now, I'm not saying the PG era ruined WWE. I'm just saying that the PG era is the cause for a lot of these things.
Number 7, championship designs.
Another bad thing that's changed with time, championships. Sure, the championships themselves are still as prestigious as they have ever been, no doubt. But the designs are what's killing me. Because Raw Women's Championship, SmackDown Women's Championship, Universal Championship, WWE Championship, they are all the same belt. Just some of them are white straps, some of them are blue straps, some of them are black strap. They're just an ugly corporate logo on a strap with a little bit of gems that you get from your daughter's Bedazzler set. The Tag Team Championships, and I mean almost all of the Tag Team Championships, are bad too. The Raw and SmackDown Tag Team Championships are pierced dog's tongues. The Women's Tag Team Championships are fancy hubcaps. The NXT Women's Tag Team Championships are basically the Men's NXT Tag Team Championships on a white strap. No thought went into that. But the nadir, the worst of it all, has to be the 24/7 Championship. It is Donald Trump's dinner plate on a Masters Tournament napkin. The only titles that I can think of that are actually good designs that don't repeat themselves are the United States Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, and, of course, the NXT North American title. Actually, come to think about it, the NXT Championships aren't terrible. It's just that the designs repeat a lot, but they themselves aren't bad. But the main roster championships, keep your US and IC titles, WWE, but send everything else back. You were ripped off.
Number 6, useless championships.
Some championships aren't needed. That's one of the things that people say is wrong with WWE, that there are too many championships, and I myself agree. The 24/7 Championship has run its course. It's been a thing for 2 years, and it's been dead for half of those years. The Women's Tag Team Championships were useless straight from the off, and they're just throwing together teams to hold the championships. It's crap. That's what they're doing with their entire tag team division, but more on that in a minute. I mean, the Cruiserweight division has been a thing of the past for several years, even when it was active. The belt has meant nothing to cruiserweights. That's just the problem. There are way too many championships when we don't need all of these championships. World title, tag titles, women's title, and one mid-card title per brand. None of this women's tag nonsense, none of this cruiserweight stuff. Have that happen on 205 Live and only 205 Live, and just get rid of everything that doesn't serve an actual purpose.
Number 5, useless divisions.
Speaking of getting rid of things that don't serve a purpose, get rid of the women's tag team scene. There was only one out-and-out women's tag team, maybe two, and some of them are released. Both of the Iconics got released. Ruby Riott got released, putting an end to the Riott Squad, and it's all went really downhill, and it makes my brain bleed. Some of you might say that the 24/7 division is good for some wrestlers who don't have anything else to do, and while I'll agree that that is certainly the case, it's also the same joke over and over again. R-Truth loses the belt to someone and then gets that belt back in about 30 minutes. That's the joke. That's the joke they've been going with for 2 years, and it's stupid. Again, you need a main event scene, a mid-card, a women's division, and a tag division. That's it. And on 205 Live, you can have your own cruiserweight division, but that's all you need. You don't need 8 hours worth of divisions in 3 hours of Raw.
Number 4, rematch Mania.
This has never been more true than 2021. All WWE has done this year is book rematches. That is it. Heck, they based one of their pay-per-views, WrestleMania Backlash, as a basically rematch WrestleMania. That's what it was. And it was sad. Not the pay-per-view itself. The pay-per-view was actually really good, apart from the zombies thing. Backlash was great. But the name is just terrible. And that's what WWE has done all year. Just book rematch after rematch after rematch. And it's making my brain explode and my bones collapse. We have had New Day versus Street Profits several times. We have had New Day versus Hurt Business several times. We have had Bayley versus Bianca several times. We have had Ripley versus Charlotte several times. We don't need these matches to go for 3 straight pay-per-views. We need a champion to have a new and exciting match every pay-per-view. We don't need them to have 3 straight matches against, I don't know, Charlotte. We need new and exciting stuff. Not the same match 3 months in a row.
Number 3, handling NXT call-ups.
This was just sad. This has been the case for years, and it's still going on, and it makes me incredibly sad. It's a miracle that they didn't screw up Damian Priest right off the bat. Keith Lee has not been seen in months. I think he's dead. I think Keith Lee actually died. I don't know what happened to him. Yeah, he keeps posting stuff on Instagram and tweeting stuff, but that's probably just his wife doing it in his place. Keith Lee is dead. The Ascension were treated like jokes when they got called up. Sami Zayn was the nadir of NXT call-ups, probably, because he, while getting actual high-profile matches, didn't win a championship. It was often made to look like the butt of the joke for other high-profile main eventers. Ricochet has been made to feel like an afterthought. Aleister Black was used for precisely nothing before getting released. And it's just all really bad. Because NXT, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, is the best of the indies and the best of WWE. But it's not the best of WWE, because when you look at it, when you look at how the NXT call-ups are being treated on the main roster, there is no best of WWE.
Number 2, the midcard.
This goes along with the rematch Mania thing and the useless divisions, but this isn't a useless division because we can make it better. Just have all these guys that you're not using go to the midcard and feud for lower championships. Have Ricochet quit what he's doing with John Morrison and just go into a feud with Sheamus for the US title. It will make a bunch of sense because he'll have something to do other than get sprayed by a water gun. Have guys on SmackDown like Cesaro, who was in a main event feud a few months ago, never forget. Have him, since he's not really doing anything, just have him go to the mid-card, feud for the IC title, have him win the IC title, and hold it for a few months to have him get ready for a main event run if you're going to do that. Hopefully you are. WWE has the best roster in the entire world, and they don't use it. I mean, they could use it, considering they've got a really long show every week. Speaking of that,
Number 1, the 3-hour
I've said
Raw.
it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Raw is terrible, and that's partially down to it being 3 hours. No one will sit and watch something that is 3 hours every single week. Asking someone to write a Lord of the Rings worth of wrestling every single week, it's just unbearable. Who would want to write an Endgame's worth of WWE every single week? And most of the 3 hours is filled with nonsense. Like, think last year, a year and a half ago, whatever, Lana and Lashley. That took up 20 minutes. 5 minutes of it, which isn't long but feels like 3 years, is talking about Drew McIntyre holding a sword that's made from the tooth of the Loch Ness Monster. What the frick is that? Anyway, bottom line, Raw needs to be 2 hours. And that's one of the many reasons why WWE, as it is right now, is just unwatchable. You know what? I can't even be asked to do the like and subscribe thing. Not gonna do it. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll see you soon. I'll see you soon.